My half-sisters got $300,000 from Grandma when she passed away. I moved in with them, thinking I could secretly crack the safe's code and grab the cash. But then I found this letter from Grandma on the table, and it totally blew my mind. This all began about 3 weeks ago, right after my grandmother, Eleanor, the rock of our family, passed away. She was 84, and honestly, the glue holding our chaotic group together. Let's face it, though, we've all got our issues. My sister Olivia, who's 28, is practically the poster child for success, stunning, driven, and everything Grandma admired in a person. Then there's my stepsister, Harper. She's 25 and came into the picture when Mom married Daniel a decade ago. Harper and I don't exactly get along, but we're polite enough to make it work. And then there's me, Jacob. I'm 27, just kind of floating along. I'm not as accomplished as Olivia or as seemingly well-liked as Harper, so I wasn't holding my breath for anything great when we all gathered to hear Grandma's will. The lawyer, Margaret, looked like she walked straight out of a black-and-white courtroom drama. Her stiff demeanor made every word feel heavy, like it was carved in stone. We were crammed into Grandma's familiar living room, surrounded by her antique furniture and the faint scent of lavender. Mom, Emily, and my stepdad, Daniel, were perched forward on the couch, ready to referee in case things got heated. Spoiler alert, they did. Margaret started with the formalities, laying out Grandma's wishes. She mentioned the charities Grandma supported, the donation to her church, and a few heirlooms going to distant relatives. Then, she got to the part we were all anxious to hear. To Olivia, Margaret read, I leave the sum of $250,000 to honor her diligence and accomplishments, which have always made me proud. I swear I heard a choir of angels as Olivia's jaw practically hit the floor. She tried to act casual, but her face lit up like she'd just hit the jackpot. Harper threw her a subtle side eye, which I have to admit, was kind of entertaining. Who wouldn't be jealous? Margaret continued, to Harper, I leave the sum of $50,000. Though our time together was shorter, I value the bond we built and hope this will aid her in future endeavors. Harper seemed fine with it. Not exactly thrilled, but not crushed either. Mom beamed like a proud parent, while Daniel leaned back with a smug grin, like his team had just scored a touchdown. And then came my turn. Margaret cleared her throat and fixed her eyes on me. To Jacob, she began, I leave a letter. A letter. For a moment, I thought I must have misheard. I waited for her to tack on a dollar amount or maybe a mention of some property. But no, just a letter. Margaret reached into her briefcase, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to me. My name was written in Grandma's graceful cursive, and that was it. I didn't even know how to react. Olivia smirked. Harper wouldn't look at me. Mom gave me this pitying little pat on the knee, like I was a kid who just wiped out on his bike. And Daniel, oh, he couldn't help himself. He sat there with this grin, ready to toss in a snide remark at any second. Usual condescension, Daniel said, flashing that smug grin of his. Well, Jacob, not everything's about money. Maybe it's something meaningful. I clenched my jaw, resisting the urge to snap back. Truthfully, I was too stunned to fight. Meaningful. Sure. I just watched Olivia walk away with enough to buy a house and Harper get a nice chunk for her savings, while I got a piece of paper. The rest of the reading blurred past me. Margaret droned on about Grandma's house, a few personal belongings, and smaller details, but I couldn't focus. My head was spinning, trying to make sense of it all. Grandma and I had been close, closer than she'd ever been with Olivia or Harper. We'd spent hours talking about books, history, and stories from her travels. She used to tell me I was her special one, whatever that meant. So why did I end up with nothing but a letter? After the reading, Olivia was practically glowing. I guess Grandma knew who could put the money to good use, she said with a smirk, not even bothering to hide her gloating. Harper chimed in, her tone annoyingly sweet. I'm sure the letter is sentimental. Grandma always loved her little keepsakes. Mom gave me a sympathetic glance but stayed quiet. And Daniel? He ushered Harper out like they had more important things to do. Typical. I stuffed the letter in my pocket and left before I said something I couldn't take back. When I got home, I sat on my bed and stared at the envelope. Grandma's elegant handwriting spelled out my name, soft and familiar, almost like she was whispering to me. A part of me didn't even want to open it. What if it was just some generic, be a good person advice? Or worse, a final apology for leaving me with nothing? For over an hour, I debated. Finally, I ripped it open. The letter was written on her favorite stationery, the one with little floral patterns along the edges. Her handwriting was just as steady and graceful as I remembered. The moment I started reading, I knew this was no ordinary note. "Jacob, my dearest boy," it began. "If you're reading this, it means I've passed on and the will has been read. You're likely confused and perhaps hurt by the lack of a tangible inheritance. But trust me when I say this letter is worth far more than money." I frowned. Worth more than money? What could possibly be worth more than $250,000? She continued, "There is something I've left for you, something precious that no one else can understand or value as you will. You must go to my attic. Beneath the floorboards near the rocking chair, you'll find a small antique box. It holds the key to your true inheritance." My heart thudded against my chest. A box. The attic. I didn't even know Grandma's house had floorboards you could lift. The letter concluded, "Keep this to yourself, Jacob. Not everyone can be trusted with what you'll find." I sat there for what felt like forever, the letter trembling slightly in my hands. What could possibly be hidden in that attic? What did she mean by true inheritance? My mind raced, equal parts excitement and dread flooding my veins. The letter trembled in my hands. Olivia had $250,000. Harper had $50,000. And me? I got a scavenger hunt. It felt like the universe was playing a cruel joke on me. But still, I couldn't shake the flutter of curiosity in my gut. What was Grandma hiding, and why had she chosen me to uncover it? The day after the will reading, I couldn't focus on anything else. Olivia and Harper were probably already dreaming up ways to spend their newfound fortunes while I sat wrestling with a riddle. I hadn't told anyone about the letter. Not Mom, not even Harper. Not that she'd care. Grandma's warning about trust kept echoing in my head. The more I thought about it, the more it felt like this was something I had to face on my own. That evening, I drove back to Grandma's house. It was unsettlingly quiet without her there, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. The house still smelled like lavender and old books, just as it always had. For a fleeting moment, I expected her to shuffle in from the kitchen, her hands balancing a tray of tea and cookies. But the only thing that greeted me was the groan of the floorboards under my weight. The attic was the one place in Grandma's house that had always freaked me out. It wasn't one of those charming, treasure-filled spaces you see in movies. No, it was dim, cramped, and always felt a few degrees colder than the rest of the house. I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen, climbed the narrow stairs, and pushed open the rickety attic door. The rocking chair was right where it had always been, sitting in the far corner near a dusty, cracked window. Cobwebs hung lazily from the beams, and the air carried a faint mildew tang. Kneeling by the chair, I ran my fingers over the floorboards until I found it, a faint seam in the wood, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. My hands shook slightly as I pulled out the flathead screwdriver I'd brought and pried the board loose. The flashlight beam landed on a small, ornate wooden box nestled in the hollow space. It looked ancient, with dark polished wood and intricate carvings that resembled twisting vines. My fingers brushed the brass latch, which clicked open with a satisfying snap. I held my breath as I lifted the lid. It was empty. For a long moment, I just sat there, staring into the void of the box. My flashlight quivered in my hand. No money. No jewelry. No deed to a secret estate. Just nothing. Then, in the corner of the box, I spotted it, a folded piece of paper. My stomach churned as I picked it up. Was this some kind of prank? Did Grandma really send me on this wild goose chase for a scrap of paper? Unfolding it with trembling hands, I saw that it was a map. Not a detailed one, but a rough hand-drawn sketch of what looked like a forested area. There were only a few markings, the outline of trees, a small cabin, and an X scrawled in red ink. A cabin. Grandma had never mentioned owning any property besides her house. What was this? Why had she never told me? I flipped the paper over, desperate for answers, but there was nothing else. Just that crude map. I sat there, surrounded by shadows, the weight of the mystery pressing down on me. What was waiting for me at that X? And why had Grandma gone to such lengths to keep it hidden? There was nothing on the back of the map, no instructions, no explanation of what I was supposed to find. Just that cryptic drawing and an overwhelming sense that I was being drawn into something far bigger than I could comprehend. The next morning, I called in sick to work. There was no way I could focus on spreadsheets and meetings while this mystery loomed over me. I spent hours combing through Google, searching for anything near Grandma's house that matched the map. After cross-referencing landmarks and trying every search term I could think of, I finally found something, a small, nearly forgotten plot of land about an hour's drive away. It was listed as privately owned, but there were no further details. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Olivia and Harper wouldn't care, and Mom would just worry. Instead, I packed a backpack with essentials, a flashlight, snacks, a water bottle, and the screwdriver, just in case, and hit the road. The drive was uneventful, but the closer I got, the more nervous I became. What exactly was I hoping to find? A stash of gold bars? Some hidden family scandal? By the time I reached the narrow dirt path leading to the cabin, my palms were slick with sweat. The cabin looked almost exactly as it had on the map, small, weathered, and cloaked in ivy. The roof sagged in places, and it seemed like no one had set foot there in decades. I hesitated for a moment, then pushed the creaky door open, half expecting the entire structure to collapse. Inside, it was eerily intact. Dust covered every surface, but the furniture was still there, a wooden table, a few chairs, and a large trunk in the corner. My flashlight beam caught a glint of something on the table. As I stepped closer, I realized it was another envelope. My name was scrawled across it in Grandma's handwriting. My heart raced as I tore it open. Inside was a letter. "My dearest Jacob," it began. "If you found this cabin, you're one step closer to understanding your true inheritance. The journals in the trunk will explain everything. But be careful. This knowledge is both a blessing and a burden. Not everyone would use it wisely, which is why I've entrusted it to you. Journals." I turned to the trunk and knelt beside it. The metal latch was rusted, but still functional. With a groan, it popped open, revealing a stack of leather-bound books. The pages were yellowed with age, and each spine bore a year, starting in the 1960s and running into the early 2000s. I grabbed the first journal and flipped it open. Grandma's neat, precise handwriting filled the pages. But these weren't the light-hearted diary entries I'd expected. They were detailed accounts of deals, investments, and something far darker. One entry, dated 1985, caught my eye. "The deal is finalized." It wasn't easy convincing him, but the payoff will be worth it. I'll ensure the family is secure, even if it means sacrificing a piece of myself. Jacob will understand one day. My stomach churned. What deal? Who was she talking about? And why did it feel like the answers were going to change everything I thought I knew about my family? The inheritance is safe for now. Daniel suspects nothing, though I fear he's watching me more closely than before. I must ensure Jacob knows the truth when the time comes. He's the only one who can be trusted to carry this forward. Daniel, my stepfather. What the hell did he have to do with Grandma's estate? I kept reading, piecing things together, one shocking detail at a time. Grandma's fortune wasn't just the result of savvy investments. No, she'd built her wealth through a mix of legitimate business ventures and risky, borderline illegal deals. And she'd been meticulous about keeping it all hidden. Not even Mom or Olivia had any idea. And Daniel, he'd apparently been trying to uncover her secret fortune for years, scheming to claim it for himself. By the time I shut the journal, my head was spinning. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about deep family secrets, betrayal, and a legacy I wasn't sure I even wanted. Grandma had trusted me with something monumental, but I still didn't fully understand what it was. I stuffed the journals into my backpack, my mind racing, and left the cabin. As I drove home, the weight of everything settled in my chest. This wasn't going to be easy to unravel. Worse, I had a gut feeling this was only the beginning. That night, I pored over the journals, barely able to tear myself away. Most of the entries were about her investments, brilliant moves in real estate, stocks, even the art world. But scattered among those details were cryptic notes, breadcrumbs that felt like they'd been left for me to follow. One passage from the mid-1990s stopped me cold. I've done all I can to keep the inheritance safe. Daniel's interference has grown more troubling. He's already managed to manipulate Emily into believing he's a good man, but I see through his facade. Jacob will need to know the truth one day. The key is in place. We used to call it our sanctuary. Sanctuary. The word rattled around my head, but it didn't ring any bells. Grandma and I had spent countless afternoons together, sharing stories and tea, but sanctuary? I had no idea what she meant. Another entry deepened the mystery. I must protect Jacob from the burden of what's been done. He deserves better than the lies that have kept this family together. But he is the only one who can bear the truth when the time comes. What lies? What burden? The more I read, the more tangled the web became. But one thing was becoming frighteningly clear. Daniel, my stepfather, wasn't the man he pretended to be. And whatever Grandma had hidden, it wasn't just a fortune. It was something far more dangerous. The revelation hit me like a thunderclap. Grandma's life, the life I thought I knew, was full of shadows, secrets, and buried truths. The name William lingered in my mind like an echo. Who was he? What had he and Grandma built together? And why did she trust me, of all people, to uncover it? I stood in the clearing for what felt like hours, staring at the bench. The inscription, in memory of Eleanor's first love, was like a monument to a part of her life she had kept locked away. The warning in the letter was seared into my mind. The sanctuary holds the answers you seek, but it also holds dangers I've spent my life keeping at bay. Whatever awaited me at this so-called sanctuary wasn't just a family secret. It was something powerful, something people had likely fought over, betrayed each other for. My hands shook as I tucked the letter back into my backpack, glancing around the dense forest as if someone might already be watching. The air grew colder as I pressed deeper into the woods, following the faint trails marked on the map. Every sound seemed amplified, the crackle of branches underfoot, the rustle of leaves above, the occasional bird call breaking the eerie silence. My heart pounded, the letter's words repeating in my head like a mantra, "Tread carefully." After another hour of navigating the twisted paths, I came upon what could only be described as the sanctuary. It was an overgrown ruin, half swallowed by nature. Ivy crept up crumbling stone walls, and moss blanketed what was left of a once impressive structure. It had the haunting beauty of something ancient and forgotten. The map had led me here, and yet I felt a creeping dread. I approached cautiously, my fingers brushing the pocket-knife in my bag. Pushing aside a curtain of vines, I stepped into what appeared to be the remnants of a chapel. Dust motes swirled in the faint light filtering through cracks in the stone. At the center of the room was a pedestal, and on it lay a small wooden box. My breath caught. The box looked eerily similar to the one I'd found under the floorboards in Grandma's attic. Dark, polished wood, with intricate carvings that seemed to twist like vines. This one, however, was slightly larger and had an iron clasp instead of brass. I reached out with trembling hands and unlatched it. The lid creaked open, revealing what appeared to be a small, leather-bound notebook and a key. The notebook's cover bore a single word, embossed in gold, legatum. Latin for legacy. I flipped it open, my eyes scanning the first page. Grandma's handwriting was there again, neat and deliberate. Jacob, if you're reading this, you've found the heart of the sanctuary. This notebook contains the truth, the full truth, about what William and I built and the sacrifices it required. But beware, my dear boy. The key you now hold unlocks more than just a door. It unlocks a responsibility I can only hope you're ready for. I stared at the key in the box, cold and heavy in my palm. It looked ordinary enough, but the way Grandma had written about it made my skin crawl. What kind of responsibility? Then I noticed something scrawled at the bottom of the page in bold, underlined letters. Do not trust anyone, not even your family. My blood turned to ice. I stuffed the notebook and key into my bag, the warning burning in my mind. This wasn't just about inheritance. This wasn't just about money. This was about survival. Grandma wasn't just the warm, tea-drinking woman I'd grown up with. The journals and letters had painted a completely different picture. She was a woman with secrets, big ones. The kind of secrets that could shake everything I thought I knew about her, and maybe even my entire family. It took me another hour to locate the sanctuary. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a collapsed structure, almost indistinguishable from the surrounding forest. The walls were crumbling, the roof had caved in, and ivy was overtaking what little remained. But as I got closer, something caught my eye, a patch of ground near the back wall that looked disturbed, as though someone had recently dug there. I grabbed my flashlight and began clearing away the loose dirt. After about 10 minutes, I unearthed a metal hatch. It was rusted but intact. The handle resisted, stiff from years of disuse, and it took every ounce of my strength to pry it open. What lay beneath sent shivers down my spine. A ladder descended into darkness. I climbed down slowly, the air growing colder and damper with each step. At the bottom, my flashlight revealed a small underground room. Shelves lined the walls, packed with dusty ledgers, faded photographs, and more of Grandma's journals. In the center of the room was a large chest, similar to the one I'd found in the cabin but far sturdier. My hands trembled as I opened it, half expecting another cryptic map or letter. Instead, the chest was filled with neatly organized bundles of documents, all stamped with official seals, deeds, contracts, stock certificates. It was the blueprint of a hidden financial empire, carefully concealed for decades. But one document stood out, a handwritten will. It was dated years before the one Margaret had read in her office. This will didn't split Grandma's estate between Olivia, Harper, and me. It left everything, the money, the properties, the investments, even the artifacts, to me. I sank to the cold, damp floor, my mind racing. Why had Grandma changed her will? What had made her revise it to include Olivia and Harper? And then, as I sifted through more of the documents, I found something that sent a chill down my spine. There were references to blackmail, lawsuits, and shady business dealings, all tied to Daniel. Grandma's journals had hinted at his interference, but this was proof. He hadn't just been meddling, he'd been actively working to undermine her and seize control of her fortune. I stuffed as many documents as I could into my backpack, leaving the rest hidden for now. As I climbed back up the ladder, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just about uncovering the truth anymore. It was about protecting it. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the room beneath the sanctuary, the piles of evidence, the secret will that named me as the sole heir. The weight of it all pressed down on me like a physical burden. Grandma had entrusted me with a legacy steeped in power, betrayal, and danger. And now, I was its keeper. The truth about Grandma's hidden legacy swirled with mystery and danger, and I wasn't sure how long I could keep it hidden. The weight of it all was becoming too much. The next morning, I made a decision. I called Margaret, the lawyer. If anyone could help me make sense of this mess without blowing the whole thing up, it was her. I kept the conversation vague, asking to meet her privately. She agreed, though I could hear the caution in her voice. I think she could tell something big was happening. When I arrived at her office, I laid everything out on her desk, the map, the journals, the hidden will. Margaret's expression shifted from mild curiosity to utter shock as she flipped through the documents. "This changes everything," she whispered, barely audible. She held up the handwritten will, her face pale. "This will predates the one I read at the meeting. Legally, it could override the newer one, but only if we can prove the circumstances under which the newer will was created." "What circumstances?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. Margaret hesitated. "If Eleanor was coerced or influenced when she drafted the newer will, it could be invalidated. From what you're showing me here, it's possible your stepfather played a role in persuading her to make changes." Coerced. Influenced. The words made my blood boil. Daniel had always been a controlling presence in our family, but if he'd meddled with Grandma's final wishes, I'd never forgive him. Margaret leaned forward, her expression grim. "Jacob, you need to be careful. If your stepfather is involved, he won't take kindly to this information coming to light. And from what I'm seeing in these documents, he's capable of more than we might expect." I nodded, my throat tight. This wasn't just about money or inheritance anymore. This was about uncovering the truth, no matter the cost. When I got home, Olivia and Harper were waiting for me in the living room. Their tense expressions told me everything. I'd underestimated how much attention my recent behavior had drawn. "Where have you been?" Olivia asked, arms crossed, her tone sharp and accusatory. "Just out," I said, trying to sound casual. "Why?" Harper chimed in, leaning forward slightly. "You've been acting weird ever since the will reading." "Sneaking off," avoiding everyone. What's going on? I shook my head, feigning ignorance. Nothing's going on. I've just been processing everything like you guys. But Olivia wasn't buying it. Processing what, exactly? She shot back. You got a letter. Harper and I got actual inheritances. You have nothing to process, unless there's something you're not telling us. Her words hit harder than I'd expected. Olivia had always been competitive, always looking for an edge. Harper, on the other hand, looked more curious than confrontational. I couldn't tell if she was siding with Olivia or just trying to figure me out. I don't have anything, I said, forcing a shrug. If I did, don't you think I'd be flaunting it like you guys? That seemed to pacify Harper. Her expression softened, and she sat back slightly. But Olivia... She narrowed her eyes, her suspicion clearly growing. Funny, she said slowly, because I've never known you to go hiking before. And yet, suddenly you're out wandering all day. I froze for half a second before forcing a laugh. I needed to clear my head. Not everything's a conspiracy, Olivia. Harper tilted her head, her curiosity still apparent. Olivia just watched me, like a cat waiting to pounce. I knew I'd dodged their questions for now, but they weren't going to drop this. And if they kept pushing, the truth about Grandma's secret legacy, and Daniel's involvement, might come out sooner than I was ready for. Olivia's glare burned into me, her grip tightening on the map I thought I'd hidden so well. My heart slammed against my ribs. How the hell had she found it? Had she been snooping through my stuff? It's nothing, I said quickly, reaching for the map. But she jerked it away, her eyes narrowing. Don't lie to me, Jacob. You've been running around on some treasure hunt while Harper and I are sitting here wondering why Grandma thought you were so special. My stomach twisted. The map was damning enough, but if she knew about the journals, the will, or the sanctuary, everything could fall apart. You're overthinking this, I said, trying to sound dismissive. It's just an old map. I found it when I was cleaning out Grandma's attic. I thought it might lead to something cool, like a family keepsake. But it's nothing, Olivia. Really. Her eyes flicked back to the map, doubt written all over her face. If it's nothing, then why hide it? Why sneak off like some spy? What are you keeping from us? I'm not keeping anything, I said, forcing a laugh. You're acting like I've uncovered a pirate's treasure. Her jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought she might actually believe me. But then she crossed her arms, holding the map tightly against her chest. Fine, she said sharply. If you're not hiding anything, then you won't mind if I hang on to this. My stomach dropped. Olivia, come on. No, she snapped. You've been lying to us. If Grandma left you something, we deserve to know what it is. You're not the only one in this family, Jacob. I clenched my fists, anger and panic warring inside me. You don't understand. Then make me understand, she interrupted, her voice sharp. But I couldn't. Not without unraveling everything. Not without exposing the truth about Daniel, the will, and the legacy Grandma had entrusted to me alone. Olivia, just give me the map, I said, my voice low. No, her tone was final. She spun on her heel and stormed out of the room before I could stop her. I sank onto my bed, my head in my hands. She had the map. If she pieced it together, or worse, showed it to Daniel, everything could spiral out of control. That evening, I replayed the moment over and over in my mind, trying to figure out how she'd found it. Had she gone through my backpack? Was she spying on me? And then there was Harper. She'd seemed genuine earlier, warning me to be careful and admitting she didn't trust Daniel. But could I trust her? Could I trust anyone? One thing was clear, I needed to act fast. Olivia had the map, but she didn't have the whole story, not yet. I still had the journals, the will, and most importantly, the truth. If I could stay ahead of her, maybe I could still protect what Grandma had left for me. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The storm was coming, and when it hit, there would be no turning back. Harper shook her head firmly, her expression resolute. No, Jacob, I'm not on his side. I never have been. Daniel's controlling, manipulative. I've lived under his thumb long enough to see through him. And now I see what he's been doing to you, and what he did to Grandma. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. For the first time, I felt a flicker of trust toward her. But trust wasn't something I could afford easily right now. "Why now?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Why are you suddenly deciding to help me? You could have gone to Olivia or even Daniel with this." Harper sighed, her fingers tightening around the coffee cup. "Because I don't trust them either. Olivia's too focused on herself to see the bigger picture, and Daniel," she trailed off, shaking her head. "Daniel's dangerous, Jacob. He's been obsessed with controlling this family for years, and if he gets his hands on whatever Grandma left behind, he'll use it for his own gain. I'm telling you this because you're the only one who seems to care about the truth." I studied her, searching for any sign of deception. But all I saw was someone who looked as exhausted and wary as I felt. "What exactly did you find?" I pressed. Harper leaned forward, lowering her voice. "The emails I found were between Daniel and Margaret. He's been pressuring her for months to revise the will. He kept using phrases like family unity and protecting the estate, but it's clear he was trying to cut you out. And from the dates, it looks like Margaret finalized the changes just a few weeks before Grandma passed." My stomach churned. A few weeks. That meant Daniel had been working behind the scenes, manipulating the situation while Grandma's health was declining. Why would Margaret go along with it? I asked, my fists clenching under the table. "I don't know," Harper admitted. "Maybe he blackmailed her. Or bribed her. But whatever the reason, she's not innocent in this either." Anger surged through me, hot and uncontrollable. I'd suspected Daniel was involved in the changes to the will, but this was confirmation. He hadn't just meddled, he'd orchestrated the whole thing, cutting me out and twisting Grandma's final wishes for his own benefit. "What do we do now?" Harper asked, her voice hesitant but steady. For a moment, I couldn't answer. The weight of the journals, the documents, and now this revelation about Daniel pressed down on me like a tidal wave. But one thing was clear, I couldn't sit back and let Daniel win. "I'm taking this to Margaret," I said finally. "She needs to explain her role in this, and if she doesn't cooperate, I'll make sure the truth comes out another way." Harper nodded, but there was worry in her eyes. "Be careful, Jacob. Daniel won't let this go. He's already suspicious of you, and if he finds out you're digging into this, he'll come after you." I exhaled slowly, the enormity of it all sinking in. "Let him. I'm not backing down." As we left the diner, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking a tightrope, with danger on every side. But for the first time, I wasn't alone. Harper might be an unlikely ally, but she was an ally nonetheless. And together, we were going to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Harper shook her head, her voice steady but laced with frustration. "I've never been on Daniel's side. He's been controlling my life for years, and I'm done with it. Besides, I think Grandma trusted you for a reason. Whatever she left for you, it's important. More important than money." Her words caught me off guard. For the first time, I saw Harper as more than just a rival. She wasn't here to compete or undermine me. She was here because she believed in what Grandma had entrusted to me. Before I could respond, the diner door swung open with a loud creak. Olivia stormed in, her eyes locking on us instantly. "Really, Jacob," she snapped, marching over to the booth. "Sneaking around with Harper now? What the hell is going on?" "This isn't what you think," Harper started, her tone calm but firm. "Don't give me that crap." Olivia cut her off, her voice rising. "You've both been hiding something, and I'm done being left out. If there's more to Grandma's inheritance, I deserve to know about it." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Olivia, this isn't about you. It's about protecting what Grandma wanted." "Oh, please," she scoffed, folding her arms. "Grandma didn't leave you anything because she knew you'd screw it up. I'm the responsible one. I'm the one who deserves to handle her legacy." Her words hit like a slap, but I didn't have time to argue. Olivia wasn't going to back down, and I couldn't risk her or Daniel getting their hands on the truth. I stood up abruptly, tossing some cash on the table. "I don't have time for this." Harper followed me out, leaving Olivia fuming in the booth, her glare burning into my back as we walked away. "What now?" Harper asked as we climbed into my car. I gripped the steering wheel, staring out at the darkened road ahead. Now we find out what Grandma was hiding. Under the cover of darkness, we returned to the sanctuary, flashlights in hand as we navigated the dense forest. Harper insisted on coming, claiming she had as much right to know the truth as I did. I wasn't thrilled about it, but at this point, I needed all the help I could get. When we reached the underground room, I showed her the chest and the stacks of documents inside. Harper's eyes widened as she began flipping through the deeds, contracts, and records. "This is insane," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "This isn't just an inheritance, it's a dynasty." I nodded, the weight of it all pressing down on me. "And Daniel's been trying to steal it for years." We sifted through the papers in silence until something caught my eye, a small locked compartment built into the chest. It was hidden so well that I'd nearly missed it. I pulled out my pocketknife and pried it open, revealing a bundle of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. One of the letters was addressed to me. I unfolded it with trembling hands and began to read. "Jacob, if you're reading this, then you now know the full truth. The fortune I've built isn't just money or property, it's a responsibility. It's the culmination of sacrifices made by those who came before us. You are the rightful heir, not because of bloodlines or favoritism, but because I trust you to protect it." The words blurred as my eyes filled with emotion. The letter continued. "Daniel has been trying to gain control of this for years. His ambition is dangerous, and his methods are even worse. I've shielded our family from him as best I could, but I fear he won't stop until he gets what he wants. That's why I'm leaving this in your hands, Jacob. Protect our legacy. Protect our family. And above all, trust no one who seeks this fortune for themselves." I set the letter down, my chest tight. Harper leaned closer, her eyes scanning the letter over my shoulder. "She really trusted you," Harper murmured, her voice filled with a mix of awe and sorrow. "She didn't trust Daniel," I replied, my voice hard. "And now I know why." We sat in the dimly lit room, the enormity of what we'd uncovered sinking in. This wasn't just about wealth or power. It was about the responsibility Grandma had entrusted to me, a responsibility that was now mine to bear, whether I wanted it or not. And somewhere out there, Daniel was still scheming, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Grandma's letter was a bombshell that shattered everything I thought I knew. "Jacob, you are not Daniel's stepson. You are William's grandson. Your mother was my daughter, but William was her father. That is why this legacy belongs to you." I stared at the letter, the words blurring as their weight crushed down on me. William, Grandma's first love, wasn't just some distant figure from her past. He was my real grandfather. Daniel had no claim to this fortune, no right to interfere. This wasn't his family's legacy, it was mine, and I was going to protect it. I turned to Harper, who was sitting silently, her face a mix of shock and awe. "So, you're not even related to Daniel?" she asked, her voice hushed. I shook my head. "Not by blood. And now I understand why Grandma trusted me. She knew he couldn't be trusted." Before I could say more, the sound of footsteps echoed above us. My heart dropped. "Jacob!" Daniel's voice boomed, cold and commanding. "I know you're down there. Bring everything up. Now." I exchanged a panicked glance with Harper, my pulse racing. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I tightened my grip on the documents and journals. "Protect this," I said firmly. "No matter what." The footsteps grew louder, the creak of the ladder signaling that Daniel was descending into the sanctuary. My mind raced. There was no way I could let him see what we'd found. Harper's hand shot out, grabbing one of the journals and shoving it into her bag. "We can't let him get his hands on this," she said under her breath. I nodded, stuffing the letter and as many documents as I could into my own backpack. The rest we shoved back into the chest, slamming it shut just as Daniel appeared at the bottom of the ladder. His eyes narrowed as he took in the room, the chest, and the two of us. "Well, well," he said, his voice dripping with fake civility. "What have we here?" "Nothing you need to worry about," I said, trying to sound calm. Daniel's gaze flicked to the chest. "You're lying." He stepped forward, his presence dominating the small space. "I know Eleanor was hiding something. And judging by this little setup, it's clear you found it." Harper stepped in front of me, surprising me. "Back off, Daniel," she said, her voice steady. "You don't belong here." Daniel's smirk faltered for a second, but then it returned, sharper than ever. "You think you can keep me from what's rightfully mine?" "It's not yours," I said, my voice rising. It never was. And now I know the truth. You have no claim to this family or its legacy. You're nothing but a manipulative liar who's been using us for years. Daniel's eyes darkened, his facade cracking. You don't understand what you're playing with, Jacob. This isn't just about money, it's about power. And you're not equipped to handle it. Maybe not, I shot back, stepping forward, but at least I'm not a coward who hides behind lies and manipulation. The tension was electric, the air thick with unspoken threats. Daniel took another step closer, his hand twitching as if he was about to grab the chest. "We're leaving," Harper said, her tone leaving no room for argument. She grabbed my arm and tugged me toward the ladder. "You think you can just walk away from this?" Daniel called after us. "This isn't over, Jacob." But I didn't look back. As we climbed out of the sanctuary and into the cool night air, my heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. Daniel wasn't going to stop, but neither was I. This wasn't just about money or power anymore. This was about honoring Grandma's wishes, protecting my family's legacy, and exposing the lies that had poisoned our lives for far too long. And for the first time, I knew exactly who I was fighting for.